Alright boys, I've finally done it. I have got my Fire Staff New World build to 700 gear score. I think this is a perfect build for me right now. I've added bleed to this build and it works very well. And I'm going to go over how we can get 15% more damage with bleed. And I'm going to show you how to use this specific setup. Now you can use this for PvP or PvE. I use it mainly for PvP, but this is an awesome build. You won't see any other build online like this right now. So let's get into this specific build. Now, before we get into the gear, I'll kind of show you the playstyle real quick. So this playstyle is mainly going to be, we got three abilities that we use. Two abilities we have a little bit of distance on, and the third one is more up close. So this is how I do it. I usually do this ability here, and then I do this ability, and then usually I can actually kill them with just those two if I hit them, but I can then finish them off with the fire. That is the build, and then if I need to get out, I can get out with the rapier. Now that's the build in a nutshell. Now you can use it in any situation, but I mainly use it for rushing forts and outpost rush, and then also rushing watchtowers in the influencer races. I just use this to push. So let's get into this New World guide, and I'll show you exactly what this build is and how this build works. Now we're going to go over the gear first, but I do want to just keep in mind, guys, that best in slot isn't just going and getting like shirking hills and shirking fortification. Best in slot is different for everybody. And an example of that, actually, a friend of mine, I was playing with him today and he's a ranger, so he does bow. And he was like, yeah, I just built out, he spent like 1 million gold, and he's like, I got shirking hills, all shirking hills on my gear, all health. So all of his gear is this shirking hills, health, and then like other defensive perks, right? And I said, do you have any like ability perks? He said, no. And then I said to him, well, you know, why do you have so many shirking hills? Why do you need 5? And he goes, well, because that's just what everyone's using. And I said, yeah, but you're a ranged bow player. You're never really in the fights. You're never really dodging attacks all the time. You might be dodging them when you're trying to run away from somebody or you're getting attacked by other bow players. But I said, you don't need 5 shirking hills if you're a bow player. You should be having damage perks and ability perks and stuff like that, rather than just going with the meta bis that everyone's talking about, because it doesn't work in every single situation. So if you're going out and spending all this gold crafting best in slot, shirking hill, shirking fortification, health, and that's just what you're doing, you're probably doing it all wrong and you might be building terrible builds. So let's go over this build, and I will first go over the fire staff. So the fire staff, we have keen for chance, flame entombment, and we have keenly jagged. Now most people say, well, keenly jagged is useless on the fire staff. Not with this build, because if we actually go with this rapier, we get finisher harmony. Attacks against bleeding targets deal an extra 15% damage and reduces flourish cooldown by 5%. Doesn't really matter, that one, but this works on both weapons. So when I'm inflicting bleed with keenly jagged, we are actually getting 15% more damage on bleeding targets. So that's a huge damage buff with this just right there. It's absolutely insane. Now what I do with this particular build, and I'll kind of talk to you about the playstyle before I go into the ring, for example, is a lot of times when I'm pushing forts and I'm pushing watchtowers, I'm doing this. I'm just spamming the flames, baby. I'm just spamming that flamethrower. Now, the reason why is because it's just good to push with the boys. But I have this ring here, which is fire damage, burning, but I have leeching. The reason I have leeching is because when I'm doing that flamethrower and I'm pushing through, I'm getting health back constantly. Lots of health constantly from that flamethrower. Now, there is another ring that I use as well. I don't know if I have it. Yes, I do actually. Let's just get this down a bit here. I also have this one, which I have hearty on. Now, this is where people get confused with best in slot. It depends on your playstyle. Like, for example, when I'm just going like this, just trolling, basically spamming this thing like this, I'm not dodging. I don't need hearty. I might need to dodge out of the way, but I can get out of the way just like that. 2 dodges. I don't need hearty if this is my playstyle. It's not needed. So it makes sense for me to have this instead. And then I'll swap out to this. Where is it? I'll swap to this one if I'm doing a more nimble build where I'm actually dodging a lot. So this is why best in slot, guys, there's no best in slot. It's best in slot to you. Okay, so don't just go put shirking hills, shirking fortification. Just don't go do what everybody does. build your own builds and test them. On the amulet, I have Fortify Recovery. When you're hit below 50% health, gain 20% Fortify. This is very good. I have Flame Protection, and then also have health on my amulet. On my earring, I have Refreshing Toast, and Regenerating. Pretty basic one there. Now let's get into the actual gear. I have a heavy headpiece. I have Accelerating Flamethrower because that's what I'm using. I do have Shuriken Heals on this, but I only have it on this piece. I do have a little bit of Shuriken Heals just in case I do get into a situation where I need to roll out of the way and dodge attacks. It does sometimes help. So it is good to have maybe 1 or 2 Shuriken Heals, but you know, like I said, you got to do a build around your playstyle, or your build's playstyle, I should say. On this one here, we are rocking Refreshing and Physical Aversion and Health, which is an artifact. On the gloves, I'm doing Enchanted Ward, Refreshing, Thrust, Conditioning. Now this is pretty good. I wouldn't mind re-rolling this and keeping Enchanted Ward and Refreshing, getting rid of Thrust, Conditioning, and adding Health. This one here, Elemental Aversion, Fire Harnessing, and Empowering Fireball perk. Now Elemental Aversion, that just rolled randomly. I rolled a 2 perk. I rolled this 2 perk, and that rolled randomly. It's not actually too bad, Elemental Aversion, in my server because we have so many bows and muskets in my server. The boots, I'm running Elemental Ward, Fire Harnessing, and Health. Now, if you guys don't know, Enchanted Ward. If you guys don't know, Enchanted Ward counts towards base damage and elemental damage. So you're getting minus 4% on base damage and elemental. So it's if you're trying to get damage reductions, like you know, defensive stuff, Enchanted Ward is better than pretty much all of them. It's better than Physical Aversion. It's better than Elemental Aversion. So if you do get, if you had to pick between the Elemental Aversion and where's the other one? Physical Aversion, you would want to go with Enchanted Ward. So that's the gear setup. But the main thing about this specific build is you have that Keenly Jagged, and then you have that Rapier. You do need the Rapier for this. Keenly Jagged on its own, without the Rapier, is useless on Fire Staff apparently, and I can agree to that. I have tested it. It's not very good. You would want a different roll on that. Now let's look into the attributes. There's a few things you can do here. I go 382 Intelligence, and I go 200 Constitution, and then I put 25 points into a random thing. You can either do 25 points into Dexterity for crit chance, which I would highly recommend with this build, or you could do Focus, which will give you 5% ability cooldown, or you could do 5% light attack damage, 25 into Strength. I don't recommend that because we're mainly using abilities with this, right? Our combo is this, remember? This, and then finish it off with that if we have to. So you're hardly really using light and heavy attacks if you do this right. So that's what I would recommend. And you can even bump this up to 250 Constitution if you want, and go a little bit lower on Intelligence. I have tried that. It's not too bad, but I like to roll with this. Weapon Mastery, this is what I'm going with. You can take a snapshot and just copy this and see if this works for you. Play around with it a little bit. On the Rapier, I'm running this. I don't really use the Rapier, apart from using this one just to get out of the way. I don't really use it, so I'm not too sure what the best perks are, but I'm using Tondo and Flourish, because so you can take a snapshot of this if you need, but on this specific weapon, you actually get Flourish deals 41% more damage to targets who are below 50% health. So I actually have used that a few times. It is pretty good. And then Keen Tondo is 26% critical chance against targets affected by Tondo's bleed. Now, for the gem I'm running on this is 20% damage against targets below 30% health, and then hits inflict surge, dealing 8% lightning damage. The only reason I have lightning damage is because in my server, not many people are running lightning damage gems, like defensive gems, elemental defensive gems. So that's the setup, guys. I would highly recommend you try this out if you are doing a Fire Mage build. All you're doing is pushing. You're just pushing with the boys onto objectives. That's all you're doing. Pushing, and then when you need to get out, you get out. That's essentially what this build is. Also works very good for 1v1, although I don't do a lot of 1v1 with this. I'm more of an objective player with this build. Cheers for the heals, bud. I'll see you guys in the next video.